Welcome to today's class. In this lesson, we are going to look at African traditional heritage. You might be wondering why we are teaching this lesson in Sierra Leone. So I want to tell you that before the coming of missionaries to introduce Christianity in Africa, we had our own ways of worshiping God. We had our own ways of living our lives as traditionalists. So Christianity just came to Africa to modify some of the practices or the ways how Africans were doing their things in cultural setting. So by the end of this lesson, you will be able to define African traditional heritage. You'll also be able to know some of the customs, traditions performed by Africans in terms of naming children, in terms of courtship, and other aspects related to our cultures. African traditional setting is basically the inheritance of culture from one generation to another. It involves naming ceremonies, it involves circumcision, it involves baptism, and even courtship. So those cultures were transferred. It started even before our grandfathers were born. It started before our grandmothers, the great-great-grandfathers were born. So that is how we used to do our things in traditional setting before the coming of missionaries to introduce Christianity in Africa. So when the missionary came to Africa, they started now either condemning some of the practices we had or to modify them into Christianity. For example, the issue of baptism, that's about naming in an African setting. We do have the way how we name our children. When the child is born, we normally organize for a naming ceremony whereby the auntie or the uncle name the child, and then some special food were prepared to celebrate the naming ceremony. But today in Christianity, we also have that in terms of baptism. Okay, we go to church to baptize the children. Even adults can also be baptized depending on where you pray from. For example, if you pray from Seventh-day Adventists, they only baptize adults. They don't baptize kids because they believe that a child does not know what is right or not. In other words, they're trying to say that a child is a sinless human being. But for the Catholics, where I pray from, or for the Protestant, they even baptize children. Okay, children can be baptized regardless of their age. They can be baptized. So that is how naming in Christianity is happening compared to naming in African traditional setting. So that's about the definition of African traditional heritage. Basically, it's about the transfer of culture from one generation to another. So having looked at that, now we are going to look at the source of information in African traditional setting. So the source of information by then was basically oral. By oral, I mean transmission of information by word of mouth. We never had a television, we never had telephone, we never had even email. So it is basically from one person to another, or what we can call word of mouth transmission. Initially, we could have they call it fire camp in the evening hours, where the adults normally tell stories to the children, their origin, how things are done in the society. That is done orally, so it was not through the media platforms because they were not there by then. So that is how information can be passed from one generation to another, or from one person to another by use of mouth. Sometimes also they have traditional songs. Okay, they can sing, but you don't just enjoy the beats of the music, and you get the meaning. So in every song they were singing, there is always meaning. Actually, that's why some people say that if you listen to the music, don't just dance the tune, but you also pick the meaning, what is in the song. It helps you a lot in terms of information sharing. It helps you a lot in terms of knowledge and etc. Okay, so they also have it in terms of proverbs. That is how we do share information. The proverb is normally told by the elder person, and it is a complicated kind of say. You will not just understand it if you are a child without a sharp brain. So the proverb also helps us in African setting to transfer or to pass information from one person to another. So that is how information was passed through one person to another during the African traditional setting. So you can compare that with what's happening today. Today, you can get your phone and call your colleague and then tell him, please, everything is happening. You can switch on your television and then watch. You can put on the radio and listen to all sort of information you want to get. So that is the difference now between the African traditional setting and what is happening currently. So now let us look at the importance of African traditional heritage. Okay, one is that children are brought in a good manner. It is a communal kind of things. When I see my neighbor's child misbehaving, I have the right to discipline the child. But today, try. The mother or the father will come to you, who are you to discipline my son? See? So in today's setting, it is totally different compared to what was happening in our cultural setting. Children are raised by the community, okay? But today, it is a different story. It's only the biological parents, okay, or the immediate family members to discipline a child whenever he or she has gone wrong. But previously in our setting, in Africa traditional setting, it was a communal kind of things. You can discipline the child. The child actually belongs to the community. Okay. Then during initiation ceremony, they also talk about honesty and faithfulness. It is emphasized. Okay. It's very unfortunate that today most Christianity or Christians are not faithful. They are not honest. They claim to be worshiping the Almighty God, but the truth of the matter is they are not. Okay? During the day, they are Christians, but at night, they are not. Okay? That's what we call hypocrisy in Christianity. Hypocrisy means you doing the different thing, preaching the good thing, but your action is another. So in African setting, such incidences are not there. Okay? Children are taught truthfulness, faithfulness. They don't lie, and they're hardworking. Okay? They learn to respect their parents, not just parents, but also someone who is older than them. They will always respect them. So that is important of having the African traditional heritage. Then also there is initiation ceremony being conducted. I'm very proud with some tribes here in South Sudan. They still maintain that culture. Okay, they initiate their children, especially if it is a male child. Okay, you go through circumcision. When that stage comes, you're not supposed to relate with the younger kids. It's now an indicator that you are already an adult. You can sit with the adult and eat with them. That is done on and after initiation. Okay, so that is how African traditional setting helps to shape the behaviors of Christians by then. Okay, then decision making is also taught to them in preparation for adult life. Okay, decision making, you need to decide for yourself. You don't rely on your parents to always decide for you. They can't be deciding for you all the time. So you need to make a decision, whether good or bad. You are prepared for that from childhood. But if you are not prepared for that, then it will be challenging for you to make any decision at your own home. Anything small, you'll be calling daddy, you'll be calling mom. This one has happened. What can I do? How do I intend to solve this? See, because we were not taught, or we were not brought in the way of becoming independent in terms of decision making. You find that a girl is in marriage, but still relies on the parents for decision. Okay? Your mother calls you when you're still at marriage or in your marriage home, telling you what you're supposed to be doing. That is very wrong. That happens because the child was not prepared for an adult life. Remember, being an adult means you're already independent. There's nothing you need from your parents apart from maybe guidance and counseling. But when it comes to decision making, when it comes to living your own life, you're supposed to be an independent person. So that is important of African traditional heritage. So the ATH stands for African traditional heritage. So now let us look at the definition of courtship. Courtship is also another element which was emphasized during the African traditional setting. So courtship is basically a period whereby two couples, meaning about a boy and a girl, gets closer to each other. I'm talking about the sexual relationship or romantic relationship. They dated each other for at least 5, 6 years before they finally decide to settle. But unfortunately today, courtship is no longer there. Okay? People are now dating on Facebook. Someone you don't know, you just send a friend request and then you start a conversation from there. Okay? Romantic messages, which eventually leads to marriage. In African traditional setting, you can't do marriage like that. And that's why today we have a high rate of divorce. Why? Because there is no gossip. You've not spent time with your partner to understand him or her. You meet today and tomorrow you're already organized for wedding. No, it doesn't work like that. Give it time, understand each other, develop feelings for one another. That's when the marriage can last. Remember, marriage is actually blessed in the Bible. God encourages us to get married and procreate, or what we call multiply. So that's why African culture emphasizes courtship. Very important. Okay. So in African setting, still courtship allows the relatives of the boys or the girls to meet and discuss some of the future plan for their marriage. Okay. So there's no, your parents can meet the girl's parent if you're not in a courtship. But today you only meet when there is a waraga. You all know what waraga is. You bring someone's daughter, the person comes to your house, sleeps there. The next day is you're supposed to come with the waraga. In that waraga, you know what is there. It's not just an ordinary waraga. Okay, you put there some money to tell the parents of the lady that don't worry or don't look for your lady, she is here with me, without your parents meeting the parent of the girl first. So you can see the difference now between the African traditional setting and what is happening currently in Christian life. So I can confidently tell you that courtship is very important, very, very important. Even if you don't have it happening now, if you're in a relationship with someone, at least give it time. Don't rush. Okay? Understand the person, make friendship so that you develop a feeling for that person. So that's about courtship in African setting. So now let us look at the purpose for courtship. Why is courtship very important? That's what you're going to look at. Number one is it encourages the two families to meet together. I'm talking about the parents of the husband and the wife. They meet together and discuss about the future plan for marriage. Okay, without courtship, they will never come together. For us today, we meet only when you want to take waraga. Okay, after taking the waraga, by waraga I mean the introductory letter. In Juba we call them waraga. We put their money depending on how much is required. Normally they have fixed amount to be paid. Initially, it was 550,000 SSP in that waraga. An envelope you give to the relatives of the husband, I mean the wife, telling them that your daughter is with me. But today, because of the economic crisis, I think it is now 1,100,000 SSP. You can imagine. That one is not part of dowry. It's actually nothing. You cannot rely on that. It's just to inform the parents of the lady that the lady is with you. So in an African setting, such things are not there because the courtship does not go straight away to waraga or pay dowry, but instead it prepares ground for the two families to meet together and discuss matters related to marriage, know each other. By the time you are now going for official marriage, you are now like one family because your parents have been interacting with the parent of your wife to be. So that's the importance of having courtship in place. Then girl's family also does the same. Okay, they can have one day and visit the home of the husband. Okay? So you become now like family friend or relative even because we believe that through marriage the two family becomes one. So you are now one family. It is because of the courtship. If you don't have courtship system in place, there's no way that the family of the girl can come to the family of the husband or the family of the husband and goes to the family of the girl before actually paying any dowry. So that is important of having a courtship in place. Okay. Then we still after the courtship importance or the purpose of courtship. Then during the courtship, investigation is done. Okay. The family of the husband will launch an investigation on the family of the lady, okay, to check whether the family is having a very good reputation. People don't want to associate with a family which has bad reputation in the community. So it is either way. Okay. The family of the husband can launch investigation, and also at the same time, the family of the lady or the wife can also investigate the family of the husband. They want to know whether you are from a hardworking family or not, because in African setting, hardworking plays a lot of factors, plays a lot of roles in terms of winning the trust of the girl, in terms of winning the trust of the relatives of the girl's parent. So it is through the courtship that such information can be obtained. Okay. By the time you now decide that yes, this is the girl I'm going to marry, there's no regret because you already know the family history of that girl, whether they are good or they are bad, you will have known. And also at the same time, the girl will have known the family where she is going to finally settle. That's about courtship. So it helps them to make sure that they live longer. Okay? They live longer because they already know their background before the actual time for marriage comes. Then it also helps them to agree on what next. Okay? Especially fixing the date for the official marriage. The requirements for the marriage is also agreed upon during the courtship time. So in summary, I can tell you that courtship helps a lot in terms of making sure that the elder party is not getting married to the wrong person, because you had all the time, your relatives are involved in the process, investigations or launched to check whether the other family is having a very good reputation, etc. So that's about the importance of having courtship in place. Now, having looked at that, let us look at the bright wealth. What is the bright wealth? It is just a wealth we accumulate or they accumulate through the bride price or dowry paying because you want to get married to someone's daughter. That's about the bride price. So it's normally paid in form of cows or animals or even some crops. But today, in some cultures, of course, they still encourage animal to be paid as the dowry, but in most cases in Juba, it is now monetized. By monetized, I mean that people now need money, okay, dollar or SSP. After you paying the money for the waraga, the next thing now is that they will get you later with all the requirements for the marriage. It could be 30 million or 40 million SSP with some goats, okay, or sometimes even they ask for cows, etc. But in the African setting, it is basically items, crops, or foodstuffs, and then you can talk about animal, basically the cattle, the goats, depending on the culture. Anyway, this also depends on where you come from. For example, in my culture, we don't rear cows. So cows are not part of our dowry. We don't ask for cows, but what we rather ask for is goats and maybe a very big cock, okay, for the in-laws to eat it, so that the husband can get the blessings from the relatives of the wife. So that is what we do in our culture. I don't know how it is done in your culture, if you still require cows, or if you are now shifting to money. I don't know how that is done. So basically, that is what we call bride wealth. So what does that mean? The more female children, or the more daughters you have, the more money, the more wealthy you're going to accumulate. So now let us look at wedding in African traditional settings. Okay, so after the bride price or the bride wealth has been given, the next thing now is you go for wedding. So you can see the process now. It starts with the courtship, whereby you say that that's the period whereby the two couples or the two couples involved in romantic relationship to study each other for at least good time of years before they finally decide to get married. Then after courtship, then they think of paying the bride price, the cows, the crops, etc. Then finally wedding. But in our setting today, You meet someone today and tomorrow you organize for wedding. It is happening. I'm telling you, it is happening. So that is how it is done in African setting. Courtship number one, then payment of the bride price or the dowry, then you can go ahead and organize your wedding. So wedding normally involves dancing, ceremony, uh, it involves cooking special meal for the guest. It also involves sometimes sacrifices, okay, to gods. Remember, we also had our own gods before the missionary introduced the Almighty God to us. Initially, we never knew about the Almighty God, but every family or every culture had its own god. Sometimes people worship a very big bull, okay, very big bull, that is their god, and then they worship it. Others, they worship tree, okay. They say this tree is our god, or even a mountain, any feature. That's what we do in African traditional setting, okay. So whenever there is such a ceremony for wedding, of course they bring the god, which is either the bull or anything they worship. Then they start the wedding ceremony from there. So it involves also dancing. People could dance, singing, and that is now what's happening here. It is common now. Today, even people also dance. Some wealthy people, they also invite the international artists. If you're in South Sudan, you have the money, you can invite international artists to come and perform during your wedding. Others could even pay some artists to compose a very special song during the wedding ceremony. So that is how wedding was conducted in African traditional setting and how it is done today. So a question can come in examination to explain the difference or the similarity between the wedding in African setting and the Christian way of wedding today. So you can say in both, it involves singing, it involves dancing, it involves payment of bride price or dowry, etc. So now let us look at the significance of wedding in African setting. We are talking about the importance of wedding in African traditional setting. So it's a way of appreciating the parents of the girl. Okay, if your child or if your girl is not wedded or married, then your family has problem. It's like people are fearing to associate with your family. You have a very bad reputation in the community. So if your child is getting married, then everyone is happy. It signifies that you are from a reputable family. It signifies that your daughter is well brought up, because people didn't want to associate themselves with the others who are not well brought up in the community. So that's how wedding was looked at as a very important aspect in African traditional setting. Okay, so it is also to thank the parents, okay, for bringing up the child in a very good way. Not only the girl, even the boy's father will also be thanked. Okay, because during the court we say that the two parents launched investigation, okay, to check whether the family is having very good reputation or not. So when a wedding happens, it means that you are actually a good father or a good mother. You've done your part by bringing up your child in a very good way. So that is an element of appreciation to the parents of the girl. So that is why we say that in traditional setting, wedding is very important. But today, people don't attribute it to the parents. You meet your wife wherever you meet from the school, from church, bar, you decide to get married. That is it. Okay? It has nothing to do with the parents. But African setting, background check is very important. Okay, then it also means that the bride or the husband is compensating the parents. Okay, after you've raised your child, you've spent some good items like feeding her, taking good care of her. Of course, you have to be compensated. That's how they looked at wedding in African traditional setting. So, if someone is wedded, it means that, of course, there are some requirements for the marriage to go on, like what we just looked at. The bride price, it could be the cow, it could be the crops, whatever they asked for. It's easy to compensate them for bringing up the child in a moral, upright manner. Okay, so these are some of the significances or importance of wedding in African traditional setting. So we still continue with the significance of the bride now. Okay, so it binds the two couples together. Okay, When talk of binding, we're talking about the union between the husband and the wife because of the bride price. Okay. Once I've paid some dowry, it means that I'm now in a union with my wife. Not actually only my wife, but also with the relatives of my wife, or what you can call the in-laws. So it is an element of binding the two families together. So a girl also stay in in her own home. Okay, that's the importance of bride wealth. After paying the dowry, the girl has to leave the home and settle at the husband's home. So there's no way the girl could leave the parents' home without the bride price being paid first. But today, what's happening is whether you've paid or not, depending on the circumstances under which they took up or meet, you find that not even waraga, okay, not even introductory letter, that letter will not be there. The lady is now settled at her home. They are living happily with the husband so long as love is there. Okay. But in African setting, you can't do that. They are very strict. You cannot leave your father's home to go and settle at your husband's home if the bride price are not paid. So that's why we are saying that it is very important for us to pay the bride price before you settle with your wife, if you are to consider the African setting. But if you don't consider the African setting, of course, you can settle with your wife without being paid anything. But that's not right. Okay, make sure that as a man, always pay the bride price. Pay something before you settle with your wife. So that is the significance of bride price. We are still continuing with the significance of bride wealth. So the Africans believe that when you pay the bride price or the dowry, marriage has taken place. That's what they believe in. So they don't believe that you can get married without paying the bride price. So that's why they consider it's very important for you to be considered as a married man, or for you to be considered as a wife officially married. The bride price must have been paid. Okay, so it's also a source of wealth to the girl's family. Even today, it is still applying. If you have very many ladies at home, you are automatically going to be wealthy. Okay, if you have like 5 beautiful daughters, that is already wealth. So that is how bride price is looked at in African setting. Okay, the more girls you have, the more wealthy you will gain from those girls once someone comes and asks for their hands in marriage. So that is how in Africa setting bride price is looked at. Okay, so it also help the family to grow rich. Okay, the family of the lady will grow extremely rich because of the bride price. That one depends. It depends on how the lady is going to be approached. Because in our setting today, you can get married to a poor man. So once your husband is poor, or you have an in-law who is poor, then there's no wealth. Even if you have 10 daughters, if they all get married to people who are not wealthy, who will not manage to pay the dowry you are asking for, then you're not going to be as rich as you promised, or as you wish to be, because of having the children or the girls. So having looked at that, now let us focus on the impact of the bride wealth, the perception on women. Okay? One is that women are regarded as inferior, just like a commodity. Why are they regarded as inferior is that because they don't contribute, they don't pay anything, but it is the husband who's paying the cows or the dowry. For that reason, they are regarded as inferior. But I want to tell you that that was African setting. But today, regardless of how much you paid, there is no inferiority. Ladies are not inferior. Okay? It is just a kind of practice we are trying to fulfill by paying the bride price. But that does not mean that your wife is inferior to you. No. So the Christian teaching says that we are all equal before God, because even the Bible says that God created human being in His own image. Now the question is, we don't know if God is a woman or God is a man, because the Bible says that we are created in His own image. So don't consider or don't look at your wife as inferior because you've paid a lot of cows, you've paid a lot of dollars, pounds, to get her. Okay, that's very wrong. Then some men think that they have the right, okay, to regard their wives as property. That is still wrong. You cannot consider your wife as a property because you've paid a lot of dowry over her. You cannot do that. But it's happening in African setting. Okay, a lady becomes now the property of the husband. So even in some culture, when the husband dies, the brother of the late can inherit. You can see. Okay. Your late husband's brother can marry you as his second or third wife. In African setting, it's happening. Why is it happening? Because of the perception on the bride wealth, the dowry you've paid. You have paid thousands of cows. You cannot let go of this woman, even if the husband is no more. Okay? So my younger brother has to marry you off. That is not right. Okay? In African setting. But in today's teaching, Christianity, there's nothing like that. If the woman decides to go because the husband is late, she has the right to do whatever she wants. She has the right to start another life after the husband is gone. Okay. Sometimes the parents now demand also high. Okay. They say that this lady of mine is very beautiful. I've educated her. You have to pay a lot of money if you want to marry her. That is still a negative perception on bride wealth. Okay. In some cultures today, I'm told that if the lady is giant, people look at that one, a lot of cows. Okay. So if you have a lady who is tall, big, huge, that one is is going to bring a lot of wealth to you in terms of cows or money they're going to pay because of her bride price. So these are some of the perceptions people have actually today. They look at ladies as commodities. And when a husband comes to marry you, I'm going to get money. That's not right. Okay. So it's also a way of discrimination. People are discriminating ladies because of the bride price issues. Okay. You cannot be treated like male or the men. Why? Because they paid bride price for you. You don't have the voice. You have to listen to whatever the men are saying. You have to listen to whatever your husband is telling you. In other words, you're supposed to be subjective to your husband. But that is not right. The bride price should not subject our ladies to all these kind of things I'm talking about here. They are not inferior. They are not property to us. They are not subjective. They are actually human beings like us. We don't need to discriminate them because of how much you've paid to their parents. Okay? So these are some of the perception people have about bride price, both in African setting and in today's setting. So with that, we've come to the end of this class. You can always subscribe to our YouTube channel to get the latest information, to get more videos on the CRE, the history, the English, science subjects, talk about the biology, chemistry, physics, and the others. So thank you so much for watching.